The fluorescent lights of Westfield Shopping Center cast long shadows across the asphalt, and the autumn air carried the scent of approaching winter. As Thomas clutched the Captain Thunder action figure bag tighter walking toward his car, each step feeling heavier than the last. That's when he saw her. A woman sat crumpled against the brick wall near the parking lot entrance, her shoulders shaking with the kind of sobs that seemed to tear through her entire body. Auburn hair fell like a curtain around her face, and she clutched something against her chest with desperate fingers. People streamed past her without a second glance, some even stepping wider to avoid her bubble of anguish. Thomas stopped walking. Something about the way she held that object, the way her grief seemed to radiate outward like heat from a fire, made him pause. "Hey, my friend, before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel."
Maybe it was because he recognized that particular kind of breakdown, the kind that happened when the weight of everything became too much to carry alone. His phone buzzed. A text from Oliver. "Dad, when are you coming home? I'm excited about my present." Thomas looked at his phone, then back at the crying woman. He had every reason to keep walking. The test results folded in his jacket pocket were proof enough. Stage 4 chronic kidney disease. 6 months, maybe less, the doctor had said that morning. He should go home to his son, make the most of whatever time they had left. But he couldn't move. The woman's sobs grew quieter, more exhausted, and Thomas found himself walking toward her instead of his car. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her, and when his shadow fell across her hunched form, she didn't look up. She didn't seem to notice him at all. Thomas sat down on the concrete beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. The pavement was cold against his jeans, and he could feel the dampness seeping through, but he stayed. Still, she didn't acknowledge his presence, just continued to cry with the kind of abandon that suggested she was past caring who witnessed her breakdown. Reaching into his pocket, Thomas pulled out the clean handkerchief his wife Catherine had given him years ago. It was one of the few possessions of hers he carried everywhere, a small comfort in the 3 years since her death. Without saying a word, he held it out to the woman. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, but they held a pain so profound that Thomas felt it resonate in his own chest. She stared at the offered handkerchief for a long moment, as if she couldn't quite believe someone was being kind to her. "Thank you," she whispered, taking it with shaking hands. Her voice was barely audible above the distant sounds of traffic and shoppers. They sat in silence for several minutes, Thomas simply being present while she tried to compose herself. When the tears seemed to slow, he made a decision that surprised even him. "Would you like to scream?" he asked quietly. The woman looked at him as if he'd suggested they sprout wings and fly away. "What?" "Scream," Thomas repeated, his voice gentle but serious. "I did it once after my wife died. Drove to an empty field and just let it out. It didn't fix anything, but it helped." For a moment, the woman just stared at him. Then, without warning, her face crumpled again, and this time she did scream. A raw, primal sound that seemed to carry years of bottled agony. The sound echoed off the mall's brick walls, causing a few passers-by to look over with alarm before hurrying away even faster. Thomas didn't flinch or look away. Instead, he simply opened his arms, and without hesitation, she fell into them, sobbing against his shoulder, as if he were a lifeline in a storm. They must have looked strange. 2 broken strangers embracing in a mall parking lot while shoppers hurried past. But Thomas didn't care. He held her while she cried, feeling her tears soak through his shirt, and found that something inside his own chest was loosening for the first time in months. When she finally pulled back, her breathing was steadier, though her eyes remained haunted. "I'm sorry," she said, attempting to hand back his handkerchief. "I don't usually—" "Keep it," Thomas said, meaning it. "And don't apologize for grieving. What's your name?" "Grace," she replied, then laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it?
Grace, my parents said I was their gift from above, but lately I feel more like a punishment. I'm Thomas, he replied, then found himself adding, and I know exactly what you mean.
Grace studied his face, seeming to really see him for the first time. You look tired, she observed with the blunt honesty that sometimes comes with emotional exhaustion. Not just sleepy tired, but soul tired. Thomas almost smiled at the accuracy of her assessment. That's a good way to put it. He gestured toward the space beside him on the concrete. Do you want to talk about it, whatever made you cry like that? For a moment, he thought she would decline and walk away. Instead, Grace settled back down beside him, clutching the photograph she'd been holding. With trembling fingers, she turned it toward him. It showed a family of 4, Grace with a man who shared her auburn hair, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, maybe 10 and 8 years old. My family, she whispered. My whole world. Thomas felt his stomach drop, already sensing where this was heading. Grace, they were coming to surprise me at work last month. I had gotten a promotion, and Mark wanted to take me to dinner to celebrate. The kids made me cards. Her voice broke. A drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection by my office building. They didn't suffer, the police said. They died instantly. The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He'd thought his own pain was unbearable, but this was something else entirely. I'm so sorry. The driver walked away without a scratch, Grace continued, her voice gaining a bitter edge. 22 years old, college student. He cried in court, said he was sorry, that he'd learned his lesson. He got 18 months. 18 months for destroying 4 lives, for taking away everything that mattered. They sat in silence for a long moment, both staring at the photograph. The faces looking back at them were full of life and joy, a stark contrast to the grief that now consumed Grace. What were their names? Thomas asked quietly. Grace looked surprised by the question, as if no one had asked her that in weeks. Mark, my husband. He taught high school history and coached Little League on weekends. He could make anyone laugh, even on their worst day. As she spoke, her voice grew warmer, love replacing some of the anguish. And the kids. Sophie was 10, and she wanted to be a veterinarian. She was always bringing home stray cats and injured birds, convinced she could save them all. She pointed to the boy in the photo. And Caleb was 8, obsessed with dinosaurs. He knew more about prehistoric creatures than most adults. He'd quiz Mark and me at dinner about different periods and species. A small smile crossed her face. Mark used to joke that Caleb would grow up to discover a new dinosaur and name it after our family. As Grace talked, Thomas could see the love she carried for them transforming her features, turning her from a broken woman into someone he could imagine laughing with her family, someone who had been whole not so long ago. They sound wonderful, Thomas said sincerely. Tell me more about them. For the next half hour, Grace shared memories. She told him about Sophie's elaborate plans to build an animal hospital in their backyard, about Caleb's dinosaur-themed birthday parties, about Mark's terrible dad jokes that somehow always made the kids giggle. Thomas listened intently, asking questions and laughing when appropriate, giving her the gift of someone who wanted to hear about the people she'd lost. You're easy to talk to, Grace said eventually. Most people change the subject when I mention them. They get uncomfortable, like grief is contagious. Thomas nodded. People don't know what to do with pain that big. They want to fix it or avoid it, but they don't know how to just sit with it. Sounds like you speak from experience.
Thomas was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his phone and showed her his lock screen. A photo of him with a 7-year-old boy with dark hair and bright eyes, both of them grinning at the camera. My son Oliver. He just turned 7 today, actually. I was in there, getting him his birthday present. He held up the toy store bag. "He's beautiful," Grace said.